There absolutely is a purpose in it. It's really simple for me. I'm in this industry because I enjoy it. It's easy to get out of bed in the morning. It's actually about just leaving everything in a slightly better state than it was when you started. Work always has its challenges, but it's easy when you enjoy it.
Welcome to Workplus, the podcast that shines a light on the people doing good work across Northern Ireland. I'm your host, Richard Kirk, founder of Workplus. I've spent years working with employers, schools, colleges and universities, helping young people and career changers to make better informed career decisions. Each week, I sit down with real people doing real jobs to explore how they got there, what they've learned, and why their work matters. If you're a parent, teacher, carer, or just curious about what good work looks like today, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Jody, so pleased to have you with us today in the studio. You're very welcome.
Great, thank you for having me. Real pleasure to be here.
In these conversations, we love talking about what people enjoy doing at school. So that's where we'll start today. So what were the sort of things that you really enjoyed when you were back in school?
Well, I suppose we could start with the old cliché, school is the best days of your life. I'm not sure I felt like that right at that present moment in time, but you always look back, I suppose, with rose-tinted glasses to appreciate what it was. And school actually for me, I suppose was really quite enjoyable looking back now, because that's probably where the seeds of my career started. I worked during the summer in my school actually with the school caretakers. And it was an old 1700s building, which needed a lot of maintenance and care. And of course, now I'm in construction.
Oh, brilliant.
And it was probably, helping them do things around that building and understanding maintenance and how things were put together that actually really started me out on my career journey, unintentionally.
Well, that's good. But how did that all come about then? Because it's like that's quite we think about work experience or Saturday job or whatever, but that's really quite unique. How did that all come about?
I suppose there was a group of 3 or 4 of us in school, and we all sailed together, and we spent our summers actually on the loch in Loch Earn during the summer. Yeah. And the estates manager for the school said to us, well, look, why don't you come and do some work with the caretakers during the summer? And we did. We got involved in that. And one minute we were painting windows. The next minute we were replacing glass, cutting grass, doing all the things probably from a health and safety perspective 15 and 16-year-old boys shouldn't be doing. But I suppose, it was a good grounding. It was a good understanding. And then I suppose in latter years as well, I have an uncle who always was building things, was always in the garden doing things. And probably quite honestly, I was more of a hindrance to him, but I was always stuck in the middle of it, whether that was mixing cement, learning how to put brickwork down, and actually just enjoying the practical aspect of construction. Good.
So it was actually using your hands to actually do something. That was a big driver for you.
Yeah. Now it took 27 years to come back to construction, but I suppose my entire career has always been in some way connected to construction, but just not in the contracting side until more recently. Yeah,
that's great. And we'll look forward to picking that up later in the conversation. But see, in terms of, what sort of subjects did you enjoy doing? So you were quite a practical person. You had that work experience of doing things. What were the subjects that you enjoyed when you were in the classroom then?
Well, honestly, it wasn't really the practical subjects. I suppose I would have done the usual GCSEs. Probably my main focus was on science, on maths, and strangely enough, I actually quite enjoyed English and history as well. Okay. Then I went on to do A levels, and I was actually the first year of AS levels. So I did a computer studies in AS levels, and then I did economics and history and maths.
Oh, wow. That's a really nice mix.
A strange mix.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I ended up doing maths and physics and French. So, that a strange mix as well. But at the heart of it, you were doing those subjects. What was the next step after school for you once you finished the A levels?
Sure. So I went in a much more traditional way. Bearing in mind, I left school in 1997. Apprenticeships were really out of fashion at that point in time. In fact, I'm not sure that outside of trades, they were really available at the time. So it was quite that standard linear way of doing A levels, went off to university. I studied in Edinburgh and I picked quantity surveying as my degree. Really, really naive, because I thought as a quantity surveyor, I'm going to be driving around the likes of Culca Mountain and a red Land Rover with a dog drawing maps. How further from the truth could I have got?
So you got the surveying bit?
Yes.
Which might, okay.
Yeah. But thankfully, I also had a passion for construction, as we just spoken about. Okay. So the two things did come together in the end. It just was a bit of an eye-opener.
So like, how did you, so what was the process by which you chose quantity surveying then? So surveying and quantity surveying are quite separate things, but they're connected in part. But how did you go about choosing that course then?
I suppose it was really down to looking at what my practical capabilities or skills or interests actually were at the time. And I knew that I would be a good surveyor, whether it was quantity surveying or whether it was the surveying I thought I was going to do. And I just liked the idea of being outdoors. I knew that there was an element of academic to it, but also there was that level of practicality. And actually, I wanted something that was going to allow me not to be chained to a desk 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And that has proven not to be that way.
Yeah, great. And that time away you spent away then, was that, were there not quantity surveying courses you could have done here in Northern Ireland? Or was it just a draw of living outside Northern Ireland for a while?
Going back to 1997, of course, Northern Ireland was a very different place. We were just coming out of a difficult period politically. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just almost the norm for everybody and in my age bracket at that time to seek study, whether that be in Scotland where I was or in England. It was quite common, and I think it probably still is, but maybe for different reasons now. Yeah. I was very lucky because I was also the last year where there were no university fees.
Okay, well, that seems like a great deal, but it seems like a long time ago in the sense that now it's £10,000 a year to go to university.
Yeah, so we all understand that the economics of these things are very different, and actually, you've got to really question nowadays whether it's value for money to go and do a degree at £10,000 a year, particularly if you're paying, for that for maybe 10, 15 years, whatever it is, some people might be paying.
Yeah. And what were like the wider benefits you got then being away? So you're away, obviously studying, but what did your life look like outside of uni? Were you involved in sailing? Were you involved in work experience? All those sorts of things?
Yeah, well, I suppose I always found time to spend a couple of days a week working when I was at university. It was a full-time degree course, but there was always space to find time. And I did work for a construction company actually as a junior quantity surveyor for a period of time. I didn't learn an awful lot in terms of practical skills. I think it was more used as a bit of a dog's body. But what was really good was I spent time out on the building site, understanding how things were screwed together and understanding how you put reinforcement into concrete and just the practical solutions that are required in order to put a complex structure together.
Yeah. So whilst the quantity surveyors wouldn't be doing that practically in their job, you're saying it's important for you to understand how it all fits together. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest benefits of perhaps doing a degree now, say, for example, when you're also doing your work experience at the same time as you actually start to fully understand it. I spent 4 years studying a degree in that sort of linear way. There was very little practical experience. And actually, quite truthfully, when I started to work, I didn't know an awful lot, whereby I'm seeing apprentices coming through our business now. They've been learning the academic side of it at the same time as learning the practical side of it. And they come out, they qualify maybe after 5 years, but they've come out with a really rounded, good start to their career. And quite frankly, they're probably a couple of years ahead in their technical capability.
That's interesting. Yeah. And so there wasn't a formal apprenticeship. It sounds like you were doing that sort of earning and learning at the same time, even back in those late 90s, early noughties. So
and needs must, of course, as well.
Yes, you did need to live, and needed some money for that as well. So what did life look like then in that transition point? Then leaving university, sounds like you had that good bit of work experience while you were at school. Got your qualification, you've been working as a junior quantity surveyor, but how did that then set you up for life after university? What did that next step look like?
So graduating in 2001, the economy was in a very different place. Things were growing quickly at that time. There was approximately 65 of us, I think, graduated in my year. More than half of us made the trip down to London to go and work in private practice there. I spent 2 years working there. I worked with a company called Davis Langdon, which then became ACOM in later years. And it was really good, solid experience. We spent a lot of time working on some really lovely projects. I was involved in work doing fit outs in Canary Wharf, for example, in London. And it was just a really good community. That business was full of technical excellence and really, really forward looking. And just the exposure that you had, because everyone was so busy, the exposure you had to projects and actually just getting things done that perhaps you might not have done if the economy was a little quieter at the time.
Yeah. And what was it about that work? Like, what did it actually look like to be a fully employed quantity surveyor? Like, a lot of people maybe don't know what that term is, but what were the types of things you were doing each day? Sure.
Well, and that hasn't really changed since 2001. We're not wearing suits and ties anymore, which is great, particularly in the hot weather we're having today. But it would, on a day-to-day, so it's technically it's a 9 to 5 job. It never really is, because you always end up traveling to sites. The building projects don't come to you. So as a junior quantity surveyor starting out, I would have been out on site, understanding how things are put together. I keep coming back to that technical excellence, understanding the practical ways a construction project comes together. You would have been out looking at progress on site. You would have been helping do valuations, paying the contractor for the works that they had completed within that month, reporting to your client on how things have changed. If the client had asked for something to change, then those changes need to be valued. You need to track the costs all the way through. And you need to work with the contractor on getting good ideas, practical solutions to perhaps challenges that they have found on site, and actually just being part of an overall team that's interacting with engineers, with architect, contractors, clients, even planning at times. So it's one of those jobs where you really do get to feel and touch the whole process of a construction project all the way through, from inception right through to completion.
Yeah. And what would you say are the key skills that a quantity surveyor would have? There's the technical side of it, but in terms of those wider skills, what makes a great quantity surveyor in that way?
Yeah, I suppose there's a perception that a quantity surveyor needs to be able to be very strong in maths. And yeah, you do need to be able to count. You need to be able to divide, multiply. I would like to think that most of us would be able to do that at any level, in any job. But it's really about people. It's really about people relationships. It's listening to what's going on around you. It's understanding what problems there are and working out how to solve them. So it's bringing everything back to that technical capability to solve problems.
Yeah, brilliant. That's great. Well, at this point, before we go on to talk about what you've been doing more recently, but what would you say to your 16-year-old self who's back in school, maybe painting a few windowsills or whatever in the summer? What would you say to your 16-year-old self?
For me, it's definitely, look, it sounds like a bit of a cliche, but whatever it is you're going to do, make sure you're going to enjoy it. You have a working life, which is probably going to be, for most of us, probably the guts of 40 years. Don't waste it. Go and do something that actually you have an interest in. And it's not about chasing money. It's about actually doing what is of an interest to you. Because if it interests you, your career will flourish and your seniority in a business will come along with that, and probably money if that's what you're driven by.
Great. So you've had this career in construction. You're now managing director at Henry Brothers. Isn't that right? When did that all happen for you?
So I made the transition from being a consultant quantity surveyor in October just past, October 2025, to working into the construction side of things. So some people might say poacher turned gamekeeper. It's very similar in many ways. I suppose the really nice part of being involved in a construction company rather than in the consultancy side is you actually are building tangible things. The outcomes for what we're doing on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, is actually building there in front of you. You're building a legacy. You're building a project that's going to be there for a very long time, and you're a part of it.
That's great. Can you give us some examples of what those sorts of construction projects are that you're involved in right now?
Yeah, so at Henry Brothers, we have got a very proud legacy of building a lot of public sector projects. So very recently in Northern Ireland here, we have just finished an MOT centre, which doesn't sound very glamorous, but this is it's quite an impressive structure. We all know the issues there have been with getting MOTs in Northern Ireland at the moment. So this is one of these big super centres that was completed in December. And, that's bringing solutions. That's solving problems for our communities. We're working with Queen's University at the moment. We've just finished a project with them called AMIC, which is an advanced manufacturing site up in Newtonabbey. And that's about bringing commercial benefit and bringing industrial expertise to Northern Ireland. That's about making Northern Ireland as a Northern Ireland PLC. It's making it much more forward looking. It's giving opportunities for SME organisations to go and test their products. That's something that's underwritten by the university. It's underwritten by the local council, and we're really proud to have been involved in part of that. It's a really, really positive commercial success. There's a project just directly beside it where there's a 3D printed building on site at the moment. So, it's showing some of the best technical...
Sorry, the building is 3D printed?
Yes, there's a 3D printed building ongoing beside it at the moment.
Okay.
And, construction isn't just about humping concrete blocks around anymore. It is very technical. And maybe we can pick that up in a moment. But, there are things like robotics coming into it. It's a very, very different industry to where it was even 5 years ago.
Yeah. If we can go a bit further than 3D printed, the piece I'm really fascinated by that. So 3D printers we think of as being something which is something you put on a desk and then you maybe 3D print a key ring or a glass or something like that, but out of plastic. But this is actually concrete that's being printed.
Absolutely. It's concrete that's being printed. So multiply up your key ring by 100 times and that's what you have. You have a machine that literally goes around pouring concrete out like plasticine and a perimeter around a building.
Okay, wow. So I guess you mentioned that there is still a role for that labouring side. Where you're lifting things and you're placing things, putting brickwork down, but actually the type of role that someone might need to have in the future is very different as well. Where they need to be able to control that and to make sure it's doing the job correctly.
Absolutely. Yes, there will always be a need for labour, but actually what's driving the construction industry to some of those innovative solutions like 3D printing and using robotics, for example, as well, is lack of labour. People don't necessarily want to be doing heavy manual labour anymore, and we as an industry are reacting to that. The skill sets, as you rightly say, Richard, are changing through the industry. We are looking at people who are programmers, people who are financially minded, people who are obviously engineers. We can never do without engineers. You'll be pleased to know from your background, and architects and surveyors, etc. So it's a very, very diverse industry and really, really ripe for bringing new technologies in.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a question about what advice would you give to careers, teachers, parents, or young people, or anyone really exploring a career in construction. You've maybe said a bit about it, but is there anything else you'd like to say to them about why choose construction? Well,
I think we as an industry still have a bit of an image problem. If you say to any 4 or 5 year old child in a school, what does someone in construction do? They're going to think of someone in a hard hat driving a digger, or they're going to think of, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's a very good thing. They're not thinking about the people involved in, for example, doing the surveying or doing the engineering, or they're not thinking about the people who are programming the 3D printed machinery, or those sorts of skills, which I think are maybe much more commonplace in many other industries. But we still require them. And actually, construction is in a really interesting place at the moment. We probably are on that knife edge of change. And investment is coming. I mentioned very briefly a moment ago that the industry is now looking at humanoid robots and canine robots. And, so people that can program those so that those robots can, for example, walk around a site and identify if something has been built in the correct way, check that back to the 3D BIM models.
BIM, is building information modeling. Is that, yeah.
Correct.
It's like a computer version of a building.
It's like the 3D version of the building that has been, so the building is designed in that before we actually construct it on site.
Okay, so you build it digitally before you then go and build it. Yeah, okay, great.
Correct. You described it better than I could. Thank you.
That's okay. In simple terms.
Works for me.
For a former engineer who wasn't very good.
Well, it works for me. So so lots of opportunity to do things that just don't appear to be construction on the face of it, but actually are now the big growth drivers in our industry.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And as you move in, you're a director in your previous role. You're now managing director back in a more hands-on construction company. Like what does that transition look like for you? Then moving more into a leadership role within the organization, have you found yourself having to develop different skills to be able to step into that role?
I suppose my leadership roles maybe started back in my previous employment where, as you mentioned earlier, I was a director in that business and I was leading technical excellence and bringing in digital and some of those skills into the consultancy side of things. The opportunity to come along and work for Henry Brothers as their managing director has enabled me to maybe just sharpen some of the skills that I had been honing over the last number of years. And yes, being an MD is slightly different. I'm very focused on the strategy. I'm very focused on the growth of our business. But you don't get away from the day-to-day bits of what a construction company is. And that's looking after the finances, making sure that the projects are running profitably, being involved in the operations. So actually getting out onto site, seeing, touching and feeling what it is as a business you're producing. Health and safety is something that is so important within our industry. It can be a dangerous industry if it's not managed and it's not considered properly. So that's a big focus for us as a business. And, we do measure and we keep an eye on our health and safety stats and we educate our people as best we can. There's also the social value aspects of a construction business. I mean, as I said earlier on, when we're building something, it's there for a long time and it has a big mark in a community. So when we're building something, we're wanting to understand what the local community needs, what the need of the wider country is, and making sure we're incorporating that. Construction is also very carbon intensive. It's not a particularly good industry on the face of it for environmental responsibility. But as a business, for example, we have a net zero strategy, which we're working towards. We have cut our carbon emissions considerably over the last number of years and continue to do that. And, we're as accountable as every other industry in that. And, when we're building projects, we are building them with the environment and with carbon in mind. And, we also talked about digital and AI, and you can't sort of get away from that in my day-to-day role, and it's actually really very exciting.
Yeah, it sounds really broad, and part of what we're doing with this podcast is to open up what it looks like to be in your position. How did you get here? But it's the variety of all those different things, Jody, and all those things to hold in a healthy tension. But it's not like you just woke up one day and you had to do all those things. It feels like there's a real progression. Is that fair to say?
Oh, yes. I mean, I'm in my 26th year now of career. So, you don't just turn that on one day. You've got to learn that as you go. And, a career isn't a linear thing. You can go and investigate and feel and touch different parts of your career, but still keep your sort of core training and your core capability at the middle of all of that. And I think that's really important that people do go and test and see around the perimeters of their career where good things are and what they enjoy doing. It's really important that you enjoy what you do. Yeah. Because it's a big part of your life.
Very much so. Very much so. We'll spend most of our lives with the people that we work with and doing all that work. So there's a piece of research done a couple of years ago of young people across the whole of Ireland, and it asked them what would be the mark of a successful life for you. And interestingly, money did play a part in that, but actually the top answer was making a difference in the lives of other people. And I'd like to finish on thinking about this, because You've touched on it already in terms of the legacy of these projects that you're building, whether it's an MOT centre or it's AMIC, which is a place where new ideas will thrive, and people from all over the country and probably further afield will come to learn new techniques in manufacturing. So feels to me like there's a real purpose in what you're doing. What would be your response to that?
There absolutely is a purpose in it, and it's really simple for me. I'm in this industry because I enjoy it. It's easy to get out of bed in the morning. And actually, it might sound, again, like a bit of a cliche, but it's actually about just leaving everything in a slightly better state than it was when you started.
It's a great way to wrap up today, Jody. I have to ask the question, what's so good about work for you? So that's where we'll finish. If I ask you, what's so good about work?
Work always has its challenges, but it's easy when you enjoy it.
Brilliant. Great place to end. Thank you so much for coming in today, Jody.
A real pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to Workplus. If today's story gave you fresh perspective or helped you rethink what's possible, leave us a review on your favourite podcast platform or hit like and subscribe. It really does make a big difference. For more stories, resources, and tools to help guide the next generation, visit workplus.app. Until next time.